And so we begin by settling into a position that will support some meditation time. And the intention in the next half hour is to observe what happens with the mind that is caring, open, and interested. And now becoming aware of the fact that you're breathing. Moving your attention to where you notice the breath most clearly, in your nostrils, in your chest, in the abdomen, or in some cases, the back of your throat. And simply becoming aware of the breath as it moves in and moves out. Just however you find it pleasurable to be aware of breath, knowing that there's many ways. Whenever you notice that your mind has wandered, simply smile because you're back and return to your breath. Just recognizing the difference between thoughts about breathing and the actual sensations of breathing. We're not forcing anything. We're just aware that we're breathing in and breathing out, and whatever we're noticing in the body, either around the nostrils, the abdomen, the chest, or the back of the throat. And now allowing the field of awareness to expand to focus on hearing. Letting the mind be particularly aware of whatever sounds present themselves to your awareness. And receiving the sounds without effort, without anything extra, and allowing the sound to come to your ears without reaching for it. And aware also of the silence, the spaces between the sounds. And now allowing yourself to expand the field of awareness to focus on sensations in the body. Allowing yourself to become aware of the entire body from head to toe. Noticing the sensations of contact, perhaps with the chair or the cushion, maybe sensations on your feet, legs, buttocks, back. Aware of the arms and the hands and the neck and the shoulders. Just wherever you feel the stronger sensations, just being aware of them, that mindful attention. Simply being with whatever is arising in the body just as it is right now. Allowing each moment to be an opportunity for a relaxed but alert observation of the body, no matter what sensations present themselves. There will be times where sensations in one part of the body begin to dominate your field of awareness. These might be sensations that are uncomfortable, annoying, or possibly painful. You may be finding that you are struggling to stay focused and concentrated. And when this happens, and it happens to all of us, we have a choice with how to be with these unpleasant sensations. One choice is to move, to readjust the body. If you choose to do this, simply becoming aware of the intention to move before you actually move, and then moving the body, adjusting the body with awareness, mindful of each shift in position. Another choice is to simply stay with the sensation, to stay still, focusing awareness on the sensation itself, exploring it with awareness, being curious about this sensation that your mind is not liking. Noticing when there is any holding or tensing, resisting, any sense of restlessness or agitation, and being present to whatever you might be experiencing. Watching any desire to run away from it or to block awareness, watching the desire for it to be different, the desire to change it, perhaps even allowing yourself to soften around the sensation, to open to it. Even within this intensity or discomfort, there might arise a sense of stillness, spaciousness, or acceptance. If the intensity of these sensations subside, just returning your awareness to this moment, to this body fully alive right now. And remembering that if they don't subside and it's uncomfortable, you're free to change your position, to adjust, to and now allowing the field of your awareness to expand to include thinking. Thinking not as a distraction or a break in your concentration, but where you're focusing your attention now. And you're focusing not on the content of the thoughts, the storyline, but rather you're focusing on the process of thinking itself. Noting that it's not uncommon for a person to be distracted by persistent thoughts, but when we turn our attention to them, they often disappear for a bit. And that's a really common phenomenon. People often say, God, I was thinking a lot. And then when you said, watch your thoughts, they disappeared. And whenever the thoughts disappear or subside, just enjoy it and go back to your anchor. And so if there are no thoughts, just staying with the breath or the body or sounds until you notice another thought. Some thoughts will have a lot of energy, sort of like fishing, and there's a big tug on the line. And that tug, that's a thought that's fighting you, just like the fish fighting. And sometimes the tug is like a little nibble. It's just a simple thought, like, I wonder what's for dinner, or I wonder, I wonder what I'll do after this class is over tonight. And when thoughts like that come, um, you just acknowledge the thought and return to your anchor until another thought or a thought stream with the stronger tug arises. But again, we're not paying attention to the content of the thought or analyzing it. We're just noting that this is thinking. And then if the thought subsides, we go back to our anchor. If the thought continues, then we have some options that I'll talk about in a minute. Noticing how the mind is attracted to some thoughts and repelled by some thoughts. How the mind may want to follow some thoughts to get lost in the story. And sometimes the mind is restlessly moving, flitting like a butterfly from flower to flower. And when you notice that you've been sucked into the story of thought, or you're just having one thought after another, just smiling and returning to your anchor until you feel ready to pay attention to thoughts again. A helpful metaphor for observing thoughts is to think of them like, think of standing behind a waterfall. And when you're standing behind a waterfall, you only get occasional splashes as opposed to standing directly under the waterfall where you get pounded and sometimes thrown off balance or even knocked down. Standing behind the waterfall, just letting the thoughts come down, just like you're letting the water come down, but it's not affecting you anymore. You're just a witness watching the thoughts cascade down. Recognizing that thoughts have a very similar characteristic to breathing. Just as thought breath will start, it'll last a while, and then it ends, so too, thoughts come up, they linger for a little while or a long time, and then they do fade away. And at any point, if it feels like a struggle to just observe thoughts, knowing that you can return to whatever your anchor is and stay there until you have thoughts and you're ready to go back and witness them. And sometimes some people say, I just rather stay with my anchor. I just rather stay with my breath or whatever. And that's fine. Sometimes thoughts are persistent, maybe even continuous, and they have that strong tug. For example, a thought or a thought stream like, I'm really worried about this upcoming storm, or I can't wait to see my friend tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you're into the fantasy of all the things you're going to do. Or another thought stream that's common is, oh man, I really screwed up that situation. And then you just ruminate and you just relive it constantly. And then 20 minutes later, you realize, oh, wow, I just went to Mars on that one. And when you have those thoughts that are really persistent or even continuous, we have a number of options. And I'm going to present each option, and this will be written down so you can look at it later, and then a minute or two to play with each option. And our attitude toward these strong thoughts that are fairly persistent or consistent, continuous, is like what we might have toward a child who's been pestering us, and we finally say, okay, you have my full attention now. You're no longer trying to push the thought away, but giving the time to really pay attention to it. Again, you're not paying attention to the content of the thought. You're paying attention to the energy of the thought. You're paying attention to your response to the thought, liking, disliking, and so on. So when you do have thoughts that are more persistent, one option is to label the thoughts. For example, thinking, planning, worrying, blaming, ruminating. And as they come up, it's just like you give them a name and then they move on. It's almost like a little mini occupation. Oh, this is what this thought is. And then this is what this thought is. So you might try that when you do have thoughts that are more constant. Another option when you have thoughts is to realize that we can generally feel a strong thought in our body. For example, you might feel a tightness in your chest or a tightening of the jaw, a feeling like a pit in your stomach, or restlessness, a general restlessness with some thoughts as a feeling of wanting to get moving, wanting to get going. And so when you are having a thought stream or a thought that is stronger, bringing mindfulness to the actual sensations. What am I noticing in my body now as these thoughts are coming at me? A third option when thoughts are arising is to just question the reality. And this is helpful, especially if thoughts are about worrying or blaming yourself or blaming others. And in that case, it can be helpful to just say to yourself, thoughts are not facts, they're stories, and they're only true some of the time. And this goes back to the Mark Twain quote that I mentioned earlier. A fourth option is to see these thoughts as parts of yourself who are struggling and to meet them with kindness. And so a part that's, if you find yourself ruminating over something you did, and more than once people have mentioned beating themselves up, you're beating yourself up and these thoughts are just cascading down, to just say to this part of yourself that's beating yourself up, may you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. Or to say, I care about you. Thich Nhat Hanh, whom I've mentioned before, suggests personifying this part. And so what he suggests in a case like that, let's say you're beating yourself up and you just talk to that part, that little part that's maybe crying, and you say, you poor thing, come here and sit with me. I've done that many times on my own meditation cushion. I reach my arm around just like it's a younger brother or sister who's so upset, because it's easier to have compassion for somebody else than yourselves. And so the personifying it helps in that respect. Oh, you poor thing, come here and sit with me. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. And the last option that I'll present tonight is to ask a question of that part. Like we talked about earlier, these thoughts are all protectors. They want us to be happy. They care about us, but they don't always feel helpful. And so for thoughts that are pretty continuous and demanding, 4 questions you might ask, any one of these is fine. What's going on right now? And then listen to what that part says. Or what am I needing to notice or not noticing? Because when a part is hammering at you and being continuous and demanding, they're basically saying, that protector part is basically saying, you need to pay attention now. You're not seeing it the way that I think you should see it. Or you might ask, what can I learn from this situation? And so I'm going to be quiet for several minutes right now. And your choices are to continue to simply stand back and observe thoughts. Imagine behind the waterfall and just observing thoughts. Or if you prefer, you can simply go back to your breath or whatever your anchor is. If you're paying attention to thoughts, remember you can simply stand behind the waterfall and just watch them. You can label them. You can check in with your body. What's going on in your body now with this strong thought? You can talk to it. Thoughts are not facts. You can be compassionate to that part. You poor thing, come here, sit with me. Or you can ask it a question. So I'll be quiet for 3 full minutes. And now returning the focus of your awareness to your breath or to whatever is your own anchor. And just take 1 minute or so to just rest with your anchor experience as we transition from the meditation to me ringing the bell.